Hello, everyone. Thank you for all of you joining us today for this webinar session. I am May. I am Talent Officer here at Fox Williams. And the main purpose of the session today is to share with you a little bit about the trainee and apprentice experience at Fox Williams, sharing some valuable insights about the firm, the culture, the type of work we do, the relationship with partners, clients, and I hope this can be valuable for you and influence you in a positive way to complete your application with us. In the session today, we have some of our trainees, and they are James Cothard, Joseph Cannon, Lawrence Leach, and Tara Reeves. And from the HR team, it will be Blair Wright, our HR director, and me, May, talent officer. Each of them will be sharing a different point of view about the firm, about the work we do, about the relationship with clients, with partners. And before we actually start the webinar, I would like to give you an overview about the application process for both groups, trainees and apprentices. So for trainees, the applications are open since the 7th of December and they will remain open until the 4th of February. In the application form, you will have to respond 3 questions, and those 3 questions will be assessed internally by our partners. So it's important to take time to review and put some effort in responding the questions, as they will be very important for you to progress for the second stage, which will be the verbal analysis test. And this test is online, it's completed online. We usually give 1 week for candidates to complete. We also send a link for you to practice before you actually submit your responses, which is very important. And this will be released on the 29th of February. After that, we have the video interviews. So successful candidates will be invited to complete the video interviews, responding to a set of different questions related to the firm and your experience. And this will be released on the 11th of March. And once we complete the applications, verbal analysis, and video interviews, we will invite successful applicants to join us for the vacation scheme. So the communication will be done in the beginning of April, and the vacation scheme weeks will happen in the first week of July and in the second week of July. We usually have 2 different groups coming for, each week. And this stage of the process is a 2-way process. We will be assessing you at the same time you will be assessing the firm, because you will have the chance to be here working with the trainees, the partners, and the associates. So you will have a real life experience in the firm, getting to know people and the kind of work we do. So it's a very important stage of the process for you to get to know in more depth the firm and for us to get to know you. And in August, we have the feedback week, where we give every single applicant that joined us for the vacation scheme a feedback about their performance on the vacation scheme and on all the other assessment as well. And we also extend offers for the successful applicants. For the apprentices, the timeline is a little bit different. So the application period is the same. So the applications will remain open until the 4th of February. On the 26th of February, there will be the invitation will be extended for successful applicants to complete the future potential assessment, and this will be completed online. There will be some instructions as well on how to complete the assessment following the application process, and there will be also a question for you to respond in the application process as well before we invite people to complete the future potential assessment. Once we complete the 2 stages, the application form and the future potential online assessment, we will also invite candidates to complete the video interviews, and this will happen in the 7th of March. There will be a different set of questions for each group, but the format will be the same for the video interviews. There will be a team internally scoring your interviews as well. Once we complete these 3 stages, there will be an assessment day. So it's not a week like we have in the trainees vacation scheme. It's just one day that will be receiving you in the firm for an assessment day, and also is a chance for you to get to know the firm in more depth, get to know the partners and the people here. So it's a two-way process. As I said, you assess the firm at the same time we assess you. And this is the final stage of the application process for apprentices. And in May, we'll have the feedback week, similar to trainees, where we provide feedback about the assessment day and extend offers to successful candidates that will join us in September this year to start the solicitor apprenticeship scheme at the firm. For trainees, the dates you will join the firm depend on the dates you select on your application form. And in general, we will follow these dates. If any amendment, if any changes occur on these dates for the assessments, you will be informed on your email. So keep an eye in your mailbox, in your spam as well, because maybe some messages can go to spam. So keep an eye on your email following these dates, because any changes will be notified to you in due time and with a reasonable amount of time for you to prepare.
Hello, my name is James. I'm just about to go into my 4th and final seat at the firm, which will be in financial services and regulations, having already done seats in real estate, employment and corporate. I'm just going to give you a quick overview of the firm as a whole, what its practice areas and values are, before briefly talking about my experience at the firm and the opportunities that working here has to offer, both personally and for your career. So if you completed your application, then you likely already have a good idea about what the firm does. However, just to briefly summarise, as a trainee, you'd be expected to undertake 4 different seats across the firm's main departments, being real estate, employment, corporate, dispute resolution, financial services and regulations, and commercial and technology. Within each of those departments, you'll then find smaller specialised departments, such as the business immigration team within employment or the travel team within C&T. The firm is also sector-based, which encourages cooperation between each department. These sectors are fashion, financial services, fintech, natural resources, professional services, publishing and digital media, technology, and travel. And as a trainee, you are encouraged to engage with these sectors, depending on your interests and the work that you can see yourself doing going forward. So to touch on the quality of work that you'll do as a trainee, the quality of work that you'll undertake within these departments and sectors really, I think, is second to none. Having spoken to a lot of trainees at other firms across the UK, the level of reliance and responsibility that I think you get as a trainee is really unique. And a lot of the time, you might be doing work that is often considered to be associate level at another firm. You don't spend the entire time doing printing or doing admin tasks. A lot of the time, you might be doing, say, first drafts of a transaction document, or even liaising with clients via email or by the phone about queries they have. You could even be assisted with strategy planning alongside partners at the firm who are real sort of specialists and renowned individuals within their fields. So I had one matter in employment, for example, where strategy was particularly crucial, and we spent hours trying to get to the heads of our opposing counsel in order to work out a strategy that best met the needs of our clients. And it's actually really interesting because you sort of realise that your inexperience as a trainee is vital, because partners recognise that you could come up with a sort of new idea that they've not thought of before. I think this is particularly relevant with things like technology, etc. So I really do think that the firm rewards those with a can-do attitude, people who are willing to take on sort of additional responsibility, and the training contract really is what you make of it. So if there's a practice area that you really want to go into, just have a chat with a partner that does that sort of work, and more often than not, if that work arises, they'll get you involved in it. And I think this sort of quality work really does set you apart from other trainees, as hopefully you come out of the training contract with the skills that enable you to seamlessly transition into being a successful qualified associate. Moving on now to the firm's values. Again, this is something that I imagine you'll be familiar with, having done the application, but just to briefly summarise, They are integrity and professionalism, friendly, strong relationships, open communication, great client service, and our people. And it is really this last core value that sets this firm apart. People are central to what the firm does and how it operates in terms of building relationships, not just with clients, but with colleagues too. And I think this rings true for all 5 of those core values, which really goes to emphasize how seriously the firm values hiring the right people. It's really these values that attracted me to applying for the firm, and it's what I most enjoy about working here. When applying for a firm, I was looking for somewhere that enabled me to undertake really high quality legal work in an office with a friendly and sociable culture. I remember doing the assessment centre and chatting to a load of partners about the football results, and we were just sort of down the pub and thinking, yeah, you know what, I think this is the right place for me. Because ultimately 2 years is a long time to spend anywhere, so you want to make sure you're spending it at the right place alongside the right people. And I guess moving 18 months down the line, I'm ready to say that this is still the case, and I really do find myself sort of chatting about the weekend sports results with sort of partners down the corridor almost daily. And I should reiterate there are other topics of conversation other than sort of sports and football available. So just to highlight again, the firm really is an incredibly friendly place to work, and that's something that's encouraged from the partner level down. There are loads of opportunities to get to know colleagues across the firm, and the firm regularly hosts events through its diversity, inclusion, and social and charity committees. Speaking of these committees, again, the firm actively encourages trainees to engage with them either through just attending or by helping to organise them. So barely a month into my training contract, I was roped into the subcommittee to help organise a sponsored walk in the Yorkshire Three Peaks. And I still genuinely think that the hardest thing I've done in my 18 months at the firm is having to tell 25 colleagues, including partners, that they'll have to share bunk beds with colleagues for 2 nights in a converted cow barn in rural Yorkshire. And that's really what I mean about the firm giving you lots of responsibility. So ultimately, I really do think that promoting a friendly culture within the firm is sort of great for you as a lawyer, because it helps to build those soft skills that are really so vital. I think being a lawyer is a lot more than just being technically good, but also getting those personal touches right. And the firm really helps to build those skills. So just to sort of finalise, what does this mean for you and for your career? I've touched on it a couple of times, but I really do think that the training contract sets you up to hit the ground running when you do qualify and when you do sort of become an associate. If you work alongside some of our former trainees, a lot of who are now sort of senior associates and partners, you really do realise that they sort of punch above their sort of PQE weight a lot of the time. And that's really inspiring, because you kind of want to get to their level, and you know that if you sort of follow this training, that hopefully you will do. So yeah, just to wrap up, it's a really great place to train and to work. I've really had a blast, and hopefully if you were to end up here too, then you would too.
Thank you, James. Now we can move to Joseph, please.
Thanks, mate. Evening, everyone. I'm Joe. I'm going into my 3rd seat, which is in corporate, having done my 1st seat in real estate and my 2nd in employment, which, saying out loud, I now realise I'm basically chasing James around the firm. I've been asked to kind of speak generally about applications, but also the Fox-Williams application process up to the VAC scheme. I think the overarching thing to lead with in relation to applications generally is that a scattergun approach is rarely effective. I know that from personal experience and also friends and colleagues who work in the industry. Applications are incredibly time consuming. I know I probably don't have to tell you that. And investing some time at the beginning of an application cycle in researching the firms and the kind of firm that you'd want to work for, train at, and potentially build a career is definitely worthwhile to narrow down the scope to really focus in on submitting anywhere between 5 and 10 applications that are of high quality, rather than 20 subpar that are probably going to just result in a sequence of rejections. When carrying out that research, I think it's really useful to draw upon a variety of sources. The firm's website is really good to kind of get an idea of the sort of practice areas that they operate within, whether they've got any particular specialisms. Like, for example, at Fox-Williams, our C&T department does a lot in travel, like James said, or in fashion. Or we have our professional services group, as well. But you have to delve a little deeper than just the website. Look on Legal 500 or Chambers or on LinkedIn. I think LinkedIn is the unsung hero of applications, because that's where firms are posting everything they want you to know, from their social events, the clients, the servicing, the work that they're doing. And I think being able to draw upon that in your application really demonstrates that you've gone that extra mile to look into the firm and incorporate that into your application. I found it was really helpful to set out my research either in a Word document, in a table, or in an Excel spreadsheet, so you can compare firm to firm. The natural conclusion, of course, with Fox Williams coming out on top. And just generally think about what you're wanting to do. Think about the location, whether you want to be in London in a city law firm or in a regional law firm, somewhere with an international presence, or maybe perhaps more boutique. You know, if you're really keen to pursue like fashion law, like we say, like we do here, or sports law, well, we don't particularly specialize in sports law. And if that's your passion, then perhaps Fox Williams wouldn't be the best choice for you. It's really a two-way process, your training contract, and you've got to think about the longevity of your career and really what you're wanting to get out of it. Yeah, just really think carefully about why you want to join a firm and why you'd be a good fit for the firm. When you're writing your application, don't just insert snippets from the website or Chambers, but think about what you can bring to the firm as well, not just in your experience, whether that's legal or not, but also in your interests. Because I think if you can demonstrate an interest in a particular sector or practice area, then that really comes across well that you've thought about it thoroughly. You'll all have submitted your written applications by now anyway, so I'll move on to the process following written applications. It can vary firm to firm, so I definitely recommend just looking on their website to make sure that you're familiar with the process, so that you're not really walking into the process blind, because you're only really going to do yourself a disservice. Like May said, our next step in the application process will be the verbal reasoning. I definitely think it's worthwhile researching the test, seeing what people have said about it, and if you can find and do practice tests online. It really is a case of practice makes perfect. And I think, especially when I was like a naive undergraduate doing those kinds of tests for the first time, I was really taken aback by the different format they can take. And I think, like I said, you're only doing yourself a disservice if you're walking into that blind. So after that is the video interview. This is really important because I think it's like the first visual impression that you're going to make at the firm. Come to it like it is an ordinary interview, so dress smartly, look at the camera, speak coherently and clearly, but also try to imbue a bit of your personality and interest and experience into your responses. You only have a very short amount of time. I think Fox Williams is 60 seconds to respond to a question. So just make sure you're prepared and you stay calm, have a glass of water, just in case you end up having a coughing fit, and draw upon that research that you've already done. I think it really comes across that you've prepared in that kind of circumstance. I remember one of the questions that I got in the video interview was, speak to us about one of Fox Williams' 5 core principles and how you apply that in your life, or how it applies to you. And if you hadn't done your research and you weren't aware of what those 5 core principles are, you'd have fallen at that hurdle instantly and embarrass yourself slightly. So yeah, really draw upon that. And then I think that probably draws to a close of all I have to say about applications in general or the application process. Do feel free to connect with me on LinkedIn if you want to ask any questions in relation to the Fox-Williams process, and I'll reply.
Thank you, Joe. Now we move to Lawrence, please.
Hi there, hi everyone. So I'm Lawrence and I am currently a paralegal in Fox-Williams real estate team. So I completed the vacation scheme in November and I'm actually starting my training contract with the firm next week. My first seat's going to be real estate. So yeah, I'll be summarising here what you can expect from the VAC scheme itself. So first and foremost, I think you should all really be aware of the fact that the VAC scheme is a two-way process. So yes, it's the firm figuring out whether you are a candidate that it likes, but it's also a chance for you to figure out whether the firm is the right firm for you. So use this week to figure out, do you like the people you're working with? Assess the partners, are they supportive? Will you like the type of work that you do there? Do you like working for those sort of clients? So use it to figure out the things you can't necessarily find from your research online. So yeah, I'm going to take you through what I experienced on the VAC scheme. So this is how I experienced, as I say. So I did a 3-day VAC scheme and mine was in person. So please note that the order of some of the things I say may be subject to change, but I would say that the exercises are typically pretty similar usually. So yeah, just please be aware that it may not strictly follow this layout. So on the first day of the VAC scheme, well, sorry, before the first day of the VAC scheme in my case, is the written submission. So this is organised by a former partner, now consultant, who organises the BIS Moot, which is one of the top international inter-university mooting competitions, which Fox-Williams sponsors. So Friday morning, I received a courier of a 50-page booklet of written materials, which are all relating to a dispute. So this could be a topic like a contractual dispute about whether goods met the specification in the contract. And now, for those of you who have done the LPC, this is not dissimilar to some of the case files you receive in the civil litigation module. So you'll be assigned to either the claimant or the defendant's case. There'll be 3 to 5 questions, and you'll be assigned one question which you need to answer from either the claimant or defendant's perspective, which is assigned to you. And you'll typically have a few days to send your submission. So for me, the deadline was Sunday night. So worth noting that you do not need to know or research any law for this. You're given all the law you need to know in the materials. So it's really a case of testing whether you can write competently and argue coherently. Now, this is it's a tough task and it's a long task, but if you like essay writing, it's one of the more rewarding exercises on the VAC scheme. And so yeah, my tip here would be I'd recommend dedicating at least 2 full days to it if possible, and knowing your submission inside out, because you'll be required to present on it later. So on day 1 of the VAC scheme, it kicks off with the first event, which is general introductions. So at 9:30 on Monday morning, you'll meet the HR team and the other VAC schemers. Breakfast will be provided. You'll have a presentation on what the firm does, its values. You'll be asked to sign a confidentiality agreement. So there are also some general introductions to each other. So be prepared to answer some of those general icebreaker questions, things like interesting facts about yourself. And then onto the first task 2 of the VAC scheme, which is the technical corporate exercise. Now, this is immediately following that meeting. And so it's a handwritten technical exercise. You are given 1 to 2 pages of information on a topic. So typically something like company procedures. And you're given, it's an example, a problem question, and you're given roughly 30 minutes to answer 10 questions about this subject. Now, this will test your knowledge, and because Fox-Williams is a city firm sort of specialising in corporate law, this exercise really tests your understanding of how companies operate. So it's not dissimilar to some of the procedure plan work you do in the BLP module on the LPC, that for those who've done it. But it's worth noting as well that for this task, the content and the sort of difficulty is being constantly reviewed and subject to change by Fox Williams. So this one might change a bit more. But yeah, my tip for this exercise would be to brush up on BLP if you can, or research to make sure you have a prior knowledge of things like how directors are appointed and removed, the distinction between maybe board meetings and shareholder meetings. That will definitely help you here. So following on from that, the second event is the office tour. So our general office team will show you the building, break rooms, your office. And after that, you have your department introductions. So the trainee in your department, like one of us, for example, will be introduce you to the people in your team that you'll be sitting with for the week. So for me, I was sat with the corporate department. The trainee will likely give you some work to do, or during your introductions, team members might give you some tasks to do. So the tasks I did were things like drafting board minutes or letters going out to the other side. So between the other events and tasks on the VAT scheme, you're expected to sort of crack on with the work that's been assigned to you by the department. But not to worry if you don't have any work assigned to you. Each department has a sort of mock exercise that you can crack on with, just to make sure you're not twiddling your thumbs in any downtime. So at the end of your week, it's worth noting that mock exercise isn't graded, and the department and the trainee and the people, so the people you work with in the department will provide feedback to HR on how you did on the tasks that were assigned, and also feedback on the mock exercise, I believe. Yeah, I'd say when you're getting to know people, having your introductions, it's always good to be chatty, show your true self, but it's always better to your emails to be slightly more formal, but it's worth saving most of the formality for the interviews. So yeah, don't be shy, show a lot of willing here. I think I stood out as I went around and I approached people for work. I asked to sit in with certain partners. I think I sort of went above and beyond on my task. So it's a really good opportunity to impress your department by doing actual tasks. So yeah, on to day 2 of the VAT scheme, in my case. So the third task of the VAT scheme here was the partner interviews. So this will be a 45-minute interview with 2 partners. You're told the 2 partners in advance, so you have a chance to brush up on them. Now, in the interview, you're asked 4 questions, but prior to the interview, you're given the 4 questions, a pen and paper, and 10 minutes to prepare. So yeah, you're told the questions 10 minutes before the interview. I should clarify that. Now, because you're given an opportunity to prepare, and the partners who do these interviews are generally really nice people, this is one of the more enjoyable exercises in the VAT scheme I found. So the questions will cover sort of topics such as Fox Williams' strengths, maybe challenges facing the legal industry, or topics in the media. So it's good to have a good awareness of the firm and sort of what's going on in the wider industry for these questions. Now, I think I performed well here because I had a strong understanding of the types of clients the firm represents, and I think my answers were quite logical, but I could have been more formal here, been less chatty, and my answers definitely could have been better structured. So yeah, my tip would be to do your research on the firm, topics in the media. 10 minutes is definitely enough time to prepare, but make sure you plan your structure too, and try to avoid a sort of stream of consciousness. So later on this day, you have the second main event, which is a presentation on the role of a lawyer. So over lunch, pizza obviously will be provided. 2 senior lawyers will give a talk on their careers to date, and it's a good opportunity to ask sort of career questions. Now, later in the afternoon, you have task number 4 of the VAT scheme, which is the moot. So this follows on from the written submission, and again, if you've done the LPC, it's not too dissimilar to some of the advocacy exercises. Now, this can be one of the more daunting parts of the week, but if you prepare well and your submission is good, your written submission, that is, this makes it go a lot easier. So for each question in the written exercise, the claimant will present the key argument from their submission for 5 minutes, followed by questions from the moderator. The defendant then has 5 minutes to present their key arguments. Again, more questions from the moderator. And then the moderator opens up the topic to the table for a group discussion. Now, I stood out here because my delivery, I think, was quite confident, but I could have performed better by relying on my notes less. So I would say practice, be confident, make sure you contribute to the general discussions, don't rely on your notes too much, and knowledge of your written submission well will help you definitely stand out in those general discussions. So, so following this, so for me at the end of the second day is the third main event of the VAT scheme, which was the social. So this is everybody's highlight of the week. No need to get your wallets out. The trainees will treat you to a night on the town. So they'll treat you to an event like bingo, or maybe dinner, or maybe mini golf and pizza. So yeah, it's a good time to get to know everyone. On to day 3 of the VAT scheme. So this task number 5 of the VAT scheme is the partner networking event. So this is typically, you have 8 to 10 partners in a room. The partners will stay seated or still, and you will have 5-minute interviews with each partner, sort of rotating every 5 minutes or so. Now it's worth noting each partner has a very different style. Some partners will want a general chat just to get to know you, see if they can work well with you personally. Some will ask you sort of typical legal interview questions, so, you know, when a challenge you might have faced, or some will ask you very sort of outside of the box questions to sort of figure out your sort of working style and how your thought process works. So if I could redo my VAT scheme, I would definitely prepare for this section more thoroughly. So I could have definitely performed better in certain parts of these interviews by communicating more professionally again, and having star examples ready, and just preparing better for some of the more typical legal interview questions that you will face. So yeah, it's worth, my tip here would be to make sure you know the firm, communicate in a formal manner where appropriate, because not every partner just wants to have a chat about the football. Some take it a bit more seriously. Now, event number 4, the department overviews. In this event, you will have a junior lawyer from the various departments will give a 10-minute interview of what their department does and what their experience of working at Fox Williams is like. And you'll be given an opportunity to ask questions at the end. Now, what I mentioned earlier about the VAT scheme being a two-way process, and you assessing the firm, this event is a really good opportunity to ask any questions that you want to ask, that things you haven't found in your research, to make you figure out if the firm is right for you. So yeah, make sure, my tip would be to prepare your questions in advance, figure out what you want to know about each department. So for me, that was things like what the typical task a trainee does, what does an NQ do you run your own files, things like that, much responsibility. So yeah, that would be my tip. Have your questions ready. So on to event number 5. This really comes to the end of the VAT scheme. So this is the wrap up and feedback. So you'll have, at the end of the VAT scheme, you'll have a meeting with HR and the other VAT schemers. So you will be asked to reflect on the week and give any feedback to HR that you might have. So that concludes the VAT scheme. So then following the VAT scheme, generally HR or graduate recruitment will give you a call within a couple of weeks following the VAT scheme. It was very quickly in my experience, and So they'll generally have a call with you and give you some feedback on each stage of the VAT scheme. It's very thorough feedback, and the call can take generally around 20 minutes or something like that. And yeah, at the end, they will HR will let you know whether or not you're successful. So yeah, that is the VAT scheme in a nutshell. So yeah, best of luck to everyone involved.
Thank you, Lawrence. Now we move to the last trainee, Tara, please.
Thanks, May. So I'm Tara. I'm currently in the last week of my first seat in real estate, which I've really enjoyed and I've learnt a lot. And I'm going to be walking through some of the key challenges I've experienced in these first 6 months and the skills I've developed to try and overcome them. So to start with, one of the main challenges I've experienced about being a trainee, I think being in a team for only 6 months is quite a challenge. And I think this is difficult because you want to make an impact as soon as possible, as this might be a team that you actually want to qualify into. So making good impressions is really important. The way that I've developed approaching this challenge is establishing good working relationships with those in the real estate team. I found that if people like working with you, you can pick up more work, and that also allows you the opportunity to show what you can do. So I'm just going to walk through some of the behaviours I've used to make an impact. So firstly, asking individuals directly if I can help them. Often in real estate, we work till about, well, people stay in the office till about 7 p.m. So if I finish my work before then, I'll make the effort to go around and speak to people who are still in the office and ask if I can help out. And generally the answer to that is no, and people are happy to see me go home, but I think the gesture is appreciated. I think also on that, people really appreciate you speaking to them face to face. Instead of always emailing them, if you and someone else you're working with on a matter, you need to talk about something, I think it's nice to go in and just speak to them face to face. Yeah, I think it's nice to develop relationships in that way. Also being in the office as much as possible is a really good thing to do. So there's currently a working policy of being in at least 3 days a week. And I've definitely found on those days that I'm in the office that I pick up a lot more work. I think that's just because you're visible in the office and people remember to hand over tasks to you. Particularly with my supervisor, who's often very busy, I have more opportunity to get involved in his work when we're sitting in the same room together. So that's been really beneficial, being present. One of the huge things I'd highlight about being a trainee is being communicative. I think that's essential to establishing relationships with people. So that might manifest itself in, once you get emailed a task, always acknowledge that, because a partner or associate might think they've sent a task to you and they don't know whether you're working on it or whether you've understood it. So I think acknowledge that you're doing it or when you'll be able to start working on it. And it's also a good opportunity to ask questions if you haven't understood. And then communication in relation to deadlines is a hugely important thing as well. I've definitely developed my communication in relation to that. So often a fee earner will set you a deadline to complete a task, and I always think, can I realistically meet that? And if I can't, then communicate about not why you can't meet it. And also, if they haven't set a deadline, I think ask for one, because that means you can arrange your work appropriately, and you won't always know as a junior person what needs doing in what order. So that can also help you organise your workflow. And then there have also been situations where I haven't been able to meet a deadline, and the way to deal with that is communicating it well in advance of the deadline being up. And once you tell them, they're often really understanding, and they might say, oh, actually that partner's work is much more important, so you should, spend more time on that. So I think that's a huge skill that I've developed over the last 6 months. And then this point is probably quite relevant to transactional seats like corporate and real estate, where I am at the moment, but you can get a lot of emails in one day. You can maybe get 100 in one day if it's particularly busy. So I'd always recommend trying to read as many of those as you can as possible, even if they don't say Dear Tara, because once I have read through them, then the FIANA might ask me to do something on that matter, and I'm already understanding where we are and I can help out more efficiently. So I think just being proactive, and don't just think this wasn't addressed to me, so I'm not going to look at it. And then this last point on making an impact in your team is slightly outside of the office, but there's a lot of work events at Fox Williams, which is a really great thing. So there's a monthly charity and social event which will be at a number of different places, i.e. I've been to bowling, been to wine tasting, I've been to a board game night and pizza making. It's a really great way to meet people around the firm, socialise with people in your team outside of the office setting. I think it's much easier to connect with people not in the office setting. And when I join employment next week, I think I will feel a lot more comfortable doing that, knowing that I've actually met some faces from the team. So that would be my advice on making an impact. One of the other main challenges I've encountered is different colleagues' working styles. So inevitably we will have our set way that we like to do things, and that will be different from people that you're working with. And so negotiating different working styles is a huge thing that you have to develop as being a trainee. I think some of the ways that I've dealt with this challenge would include paying attention to how associates and partners that you're working with like things being done. Some are happy to give you responsibility earlier on, whereas others might want to see that you can complete a set of tasks before they actually give you responsibility the next time to just run with it. So I think just taking note of different partners and associate styles and being flexible. So to illustrate, in the real estate team, there's 3 partners, all with their very individual styles. Some of them, one of them actually gives quite clear instructions, so you kind of feel comfortable setting out on that task, that you know the parameters, whereas another might be a bit more vague and you have to use a lot more initiative and kind of search through the file to find the information that you need. So I think just trying to work out how people like to give instructions and how to deal with that. And that could be amplified even more if you're in a different team where there's, 10, 15 partners. So yeah, I think that's a key way to deal with different working styles. And then as a first seater, I think there can be the feeling sometimes that you're not getting enough exciting legal tasks straight in your first week. But I've definitely learned you need to be patient in that regard. It's like no one knows what you're capable of in your week 2. And I've definitely seen my responsibility increase as I progress through the seat. And I think it's essential to show that you can do those simple tasks well. So in your first week, you might be doing more admin-based tasks, but once I've shown that I can do those, then I've, as James mentioned, got a lot more experience and done a bit more client-facing and drafting tasks, and that's been really satisfying to see that progress. Lastly, on this challenge, I would say take note of feedback. That's a really important thing, and I think can be difficult if you haven't been in a position where you've received feedback. So always try and take it constructively, and take it into account for the next time you do a task, because inevitably in real estate, I've done some tasks maybe 20 times now, and each time I'll pick up a new piece of feedback that I can incorporate next time when I do it. And often you don't get direct feedback, so taking initiative to actually check what an associate or partner has changed before sending a piece of work out is really important. So if I've done a first draft of a lease and then another version goes out to the client, I will actually run a comparison just to see, oh, that's what got changed. So just to sum up on challenges, it may have seemed that I've made it seem like quite a challenging first 6 months, but it definitely has been that, but also enjoyable for those same reasons. I've had not a boring day in 6 months, and I think that's what makes being a trainee a really rewarding job, is the challenges you have to encounter and overcome and the skills you develop in the process.
Thank you all for your insights in terms of the application process, back scheme and life at Fox Williams. We did ask for some questions, and we do have 5 that have been submitted thus far. So the first question submitted, we've asked Lawrence to respond to. Why did you decide to pursue a training contract at Fox Williams over and above other law firms?
Again, yeah, so somebody once told me that it's good to try different sizes of a firm. So I personally was a paralegal at a large international firm for several years, and I had a difficult decision to make, whether to stay there or to come to Fox Williams, but I was keen to try a different size of firm. So why I think I chose Fox Williams over these over other types of firm, at larger firms, you may have a lot of formal training, but my experience is I don't retain too much from lectures. I learn better on the job. And sometimes the supervision maybe isn't great at larger firms, and maybe the partner exposure isn't as good. But I think the key point being, at a larger firm, whilst they may act for sort of blue chip, household name, public body clients that everyone sort of says they want to act for, I would say beware that when you are acting for these sort of types of clients, there is a lot of red tape and admin that comes with these clients. They have their own internal processes that they expect their external lawyers to adhere to. So that often means that transactions can get caught up in the process, they get delayed. So it's not as fast moving, and you spend a lot more time doing admin and less time being a lawyer. Now, the reason why I think I chose Fox Williams over these sort of other firms, now the on-the-job training here is great. And by that, I mean your exposure to sort of partners, sitting in the same room with them, chatting every day, being involved in the emails is great. You learn so much more on the job here from your peers than you maybe would at another firm. I'd also say Fox Williams is a smaller firm in that it's a single office, non-international firm, but it really punches above its weight in terms of clients. So there's absolutely no drop in quality of work. And the clients we do have tend to have far less of that red tape and admin that I mentioned earlier. Yeah, and I'd say the partner supervision here is generally great. So whereas at other places it might be a bit more sink or swim, you're given stuff and expected to deal with it and figure out how to deal with it. Here, I mean, the partners keep a really tight control of their matters and a really good overview. So for me, I think that works really well. Just being able to learn from them and having confidence that what I'm doing is correct because it's been checked by a partner. I'd say the advantage of a smaller firm as well. You definitely feel a lot more valued and a lot more welcomed. So you're less of sort of an employee number or a name on a screen. You tend to know everyone here, and that's great. I'd also say Fox Williams generally matches pretty much all of the benefits and extracurricular activities that you would have at a larger firm. So those sort of perks you have there also apply here. And I'd say the work-life balance here is generally an advantage as well. The hours are sort of some of the larger, more international firms or Magic Circle firms are notoriously a lot longer. The main advantage for me, I would say, is the application process here is quite quick at Fox Williams. So larger firms, they expect you to apply sort of maybe 2 years in advance, and it's often typically a 3-year wait from submitting your application to that, going through the interviews and getting the decision a year later, and then waiting 2 years. Where I would say here, May showed you the timeline at the start. It's a much quicker process. So yeah, I saw those are the key reasons really why I think I chose a training contract at Fox Williams over other types of firms.
Thank you very much, Lawrence, much appreciated. And the second question is going to Joe, and that was, what does success look like when you're working here?
Yeah, when I was thinking about this and reflecting on my time, I think it really touches upon what Tara was saying about once you've proven yourself, you start to be trusted with a greater quantity of work of greater complexity. You'll go from the more admin type things when you first move into a seat to maybe drafting a whole host of documents. So I think in terms of professional development, I think that's probably what success looks like, that you become an integral part to any transaction or advisory work or whatever you're working on really. In terms of being socially successful, I think, Fox Williams is really focused on fostering a really great culture. And I think that social success in the firm is the simulation, not just into your team, but into the wider firm. And I think that's can be achieved through the social events that Tara mentioned earlier. I'm always at those. So And I think it's generally the sense that you belong here, and you do. And, you know, I've built a number of really great friendships here with across teams and with the training cohort. And I think because of that, you genuinely do enjoy coming to work alongside these people and getting to see them 5 days a week.
Thank you very much. So James is currently volunteering to answer the next 2 questions. So number 3 is, what opportunities does Fox Williams offer to enable trainees to benefit from mentoring and client contact?
I think a lot of it's been touched on already, particularly by Lawrence just then. I think the size and the structure of the firm really helps. I think until I joined and started sort of networking with the trainee solicitors at other firms, I don't think I appreciated how much partner contact you get here. So I know a lot of bigger firms, you might get sort of one partner for 7 fee earners, for example, whereas I don't want to put a number on it, but it feels significantly less here. Often in your day-to-day work, you'll be working one-to-one with sort of multiple partners on various deals throughout the day, or other senior individuals within the team. So that's really invaluable for sort of mentoring experience, because you see how these senior individuals work. There's not this sort of associate layer in between you and the sort of partner. You're actually directly working with them, and that means, you know, you're there on the calls when they're chatting to clients, seeing how they work, and then it means you're submitting your work to them and getting feedback directly from them. And I think specifically on the mentoring point with feedback, sometimes maybe partners wouldn't give it. They might just like look at your work and send out to a client with changes, but that's where it's sort of up to the trainee to sort of go to that partner and say, how was that bit of work, and what were those changes you made, and why did you make them? And I generally find pretty much everyone is perfectly happy to sort of provide that level of feedback. Again, I think Tara mentioned that you do sit usually with a partner in your room or another senior individual. And I think really, even if you're not working with them on a deal, you kind of get this learning via osmosis sort of thing, where you sit with them on calls or listen to them do a call in your first week in the seat, and you think, that's a really funny phrase they use, I've never heard that before. And then you sort of fast forward 4 months and you hear yourself saying it, you think, oh, I'm not sure where that came from. And that's just really what happens when you sit in a room with these sort of people that really know what they're talking about. And then just briefly on clients as well, I think the natural result of the fact that you do work one-to-one with these senior people does mean there's not, again, this sort of additional layer of people that are sort of hogging the client, as it were. A lot of the time, maybe be the partner liaising with the client, but sort of I find that as you work more and more on a matter, partners and will sort of trust you more to deal with clients, and also you'll naturally sort of build these relationships with clients, and you'll find yourself being the sort of point of contact for that client, which I think is really unique, and again not something you get everywhere, sort of in the city.
Thank you very much. And then the next question was around our partner mentors. So the question says, I know trainees are assigned partner mentors during their training contract. How have trainees benefited from this?
So I always think the trainee mentors at the firm are great for sort of the non-work related and sort of informal chats and the career chats as well. So not actually specifically talking about matters you're working on or an email you sent, but sort of just knocking on the door and just saying how are things going, what's your sort of plans and everything. But I should reiterate again, it's another one of those relationships where it is what you make of it. You can define a relationship. So if you want to talk about other stuff with them, that's great. Just make sure you set that out. It's really flexible, which I think is great. I think I generally follow the traditional route with the partner mentors, which is arranging sort of meetings around the time of my mid-seat review and my end-of-seat review. They're really good because the trainee mentors will get copies of your reviews from your sort of mentors within the department, and they're really good opportunities to break down the feedback you've received sort of in the last 3 to 6 months, and just sort of work out what this feedback really means, and they'll maybe provide additional feedback and saying that you've had this a couple of times in your last couple of reviews, here's how you can improve it. And it's just a great time to sort of discuss how your seat's going more generally, whether you see yourself qualifying there, what seat you want to go into next, whether you're enjoying life at the firm. So yeah, it's just a really great opportunity to sort of chat about how things are going generally. And I think I should reiterate, or not reiterate, but say that the two partner mentors at the firm both qualified here, which is great because you know they've sort of been through it before, and they can provide that first-hand advice, which again, you don't get everywhere.
Thank you very much. Next question is to Tara. What are the most rewarding and challenging parts about being a trainee of Oxford?
I think one of the most challenging things about being a trainee is the fact that you're always kind of in a mode of learning. So each new day you have to be ready to take on new information and constantly absorb new ideas and take on new tasks. Definitely as you're in the beginning of your seat, every day will be full of completely new tasks. And now I'm at the end of the seat, I'm obviously feeling a lot more comfortable with the general type of real estate tasks, and new things do definitely come up. As I was saying, no day is ever boring because there's always some new aspect to a matter, but I'm definitely at a stage where I feel much more comfortable about what tasks I'll get given on a set day. But what's going to change next week is that we'll all get shaken up again, and I'll be back to square one of not knowing what tasks I'm expected to do in employment. So I think just being in a constant state of being adaptable and taking initiative and how to react to new tasks. Another challenging part of being a trainee, which probably is more specific to Fox Williams, is the fact that there's a small trainee intake. So I'm the only trainee in real estate, and that means that I am an integral part of the team and I am involved in pretty much most matters. So I might not be on a matter for every single task, but at some point during a transaction, I'll have some involvement. So I think your visibility in a deal team is definitely very important, and you get a really substantial task because of that. And I think it will be noticed if you're not fully doing tasks to your best of your ability. So I think just always making sure, you're doing a task as well as you can, because you're only in a team for 6 months, as I said, so you want to make an impact.
Thank you very much, all of you, for being here today with us.
Thank you.
Thank you.